Welcome to Spiritual and Ambitious. I'm your host, Whitney McNeil. I'm a certified medium and spiritual teacher, and I help spiritual and ambitious souls just like you live your life purpose through your career and attract abundance by connecting into your intuition and spirit guides. Let's get spiritual and ambitious. Welcome to this episode of the Spiritual and Ambitious podcast. I'm here with Allyson Scammell, master intuitive business coach, energy healer, psychic medium. Allyson is a master intuitive, and her mission is to help soul-guided leaders, influencers, and entrepreneurs to upgrade their energy frequency to gain unstoppable momentum in life and business. As the founder of the Soul Guide Academy, Allyson has helped thousands of leaders and light workers to earn more, serve more, and grow spiritually along the way. She regularly shares priceless wisdom and insight on Soul Guide Radio, a top-rated podcast for soul-guided influencers ready to unlock massive soul-aligned success. And we're going to be talking about energetic soul client attraction and how healing attracts your soul client. So welcome to the podcast, Allyson.
Thank you, Whitney. I'm so thrilled to be here.
I'm happy you're here. And just for the listeners out there, Allyson and I were having these technical issues before we recorded this episode. And every time I have someone who's really high vibe on this podcast, it just kind of happens. So it's so interesting. I know that we already have good energy here, and I can't wait to see what's going to come through. And I know that you really deal a lot with alignment. And I love that because, of course, I talk about it quite a bit on this podcast and in my business. But I want to talk to you a little bit more about soul clients and that alignment and how you got started or started to understand what that was. So can you tell us a little bit about what a soul client is in your definition and how you kind of came to know this?
Yeah. So I define a soul client as that person you're like literally born to serve. And you agreed on a soul level before you came into this lifetime that at a certain point in your journey, you are going to meet and have an exchange. And so we have soul clients in all aspects of our lives, in our families, in our communities. But from a business perspective, then that exchange is he, she, or they arrive into your business. And normally that exchange is they invest in something. They invest in you. They invest in your business. They invest in your offering. And then in exchange, of course, you give your gifts, your genius. And that exchange is powerful because it's a soul connection. And they don't want your gifts. They literally need them to advance to the next level on your path. And this is really for whatever. If it is a soul client, it doesn't matter what you offer. You can sell blenders. And she's going to drink green juice, your soul client avatar, and she needs your specific blender. So it works if you're in the service-based industry and you're a coach or a healer or whatever, but it really works anywhere when there's a soul exchange happening.
I've got a question about that. So do you feel like these clients are predestined to meet you on some level?
Yes.
Oh, I love that. Tell me a little bit more about how you kind of came to know. I know I just interrupted you, but tell me a little bit more about how you came to know that.
Such a good question. It happened so organically. And I said, Whitney, like all the best stuff just sort of like shows up. And it just sort of showed up in my experience. I've been super lucky in my coaching business that I haven't had a lot of, sad client stories where I had this horrible client. But it did happen a couple times where it felt really off. Mm-hmm. Like they were a great person. They weren't saying anything or doing anything mean to me. They were paying me, all that. But I was like, whoa, that just felt off. And I realized how quickly it could take something I love so deeply, coaching, healing, channeling, serving others, and turn it into something that I don't like to do at all. Like it really just like, whoa, that alignment is just not here. So that's when it was at more towards the beginning of my coaching career where I think a lot of new coaches a lot of new people in business, we all fall into the mindset, well, it's not an ideal client, but I need the business. I need the money. And I think that's okay when you're first starting because you need to start generating wealth in your business. So if it's not a perfect match, that's okay because it helps you understand what the perfect matches are. But I was to the point where I felt like I was already cutting my teeth. And I finally got to the point where I kind of had the courage, because it does take courage, to say, I only want the highest aligned clients. And so I kind of put a red velvet rope up in front of my business. And I said, I'm only going to call in the most aligned clients for me. And things started to shift in my business when I had the courage to do that, because it does take a lot of courage, right? And I did have to say no to a few people. That took so much courage for me. And it created this space. And in this space, these soul sisters, I serve mostly women, but choose your pronoun for your soul client avatar. These soul sisters started to arrive. And it was magical. It was effortless. And the thing that lit me up the most were the results they were experiencing. Because obviously, as a coach or a healer, you want to get your clients these massive results. And that was just like, oh, this is what I want. So then I started doing some channeling around it, and I started doing some research around it. And then I really started to tune into the energy around it. And that's when it started to come through that we actually there are certain people that we are literally destined to serve. And those are soul clients.
I really love that. And what's interesting, it's like we learn so much from experience, right? And that really tells us if we're in alignment or not most of the time. And I learned so much from spirit. And so it's so interesting because I've been asked that question. I just asked you, how do you know this? It's like, well, I know this because I've lived through it or I've had that experience. And I can really relate to what you're saying. It's like when you have this client that, kind of fits the part on the piece of paper, what you've kind of said that you wanted, but it just feels off. You just know something's just not quite in alignment. And every time someone kind of goes over that feeling and they just ignore it, something funky always happens. And the universe goes, oh, you're okay with this? Let me send you some more. And it's like, no. So I love that you said, I put this velvet rope, like, no, I'm doing this softly, but I'm claiming my space. That's really a beautiful understanding to have, that we are destined to meet each other from a different time. And so many times we think about this as romantic relationships, but really this is how we can truly create and co-create together in our businesses as well. So I like that. But what about energetic soul client attractions? How did you do that? How do you attract your soulmate client?
Yeah. So a key defining aspect of a soul client, which I didn't mention specifically, is that we're like a puzzle piece. So our genius, our core gifts, our spiritual gifts, our natural unique genius fits like a puzzle piece to their needs, pains, and wants, right? And this really does work for whatever it is you're offering. You don't have to be a coach or a healer for this to hold true. And so when you are owning your gifts and like really owning it from that core part of you, from your heart space, that I'm out there creating, I'm podcasting, I'm writing, I'm talking, I'm teaching, whatever it is you do in your business, to talk about your offerings and talk about what it is you do, the more you really are aligned to your gifts, and that's a journey. We don't know overnight what our gifts are. We go on the journey to peel the onion back till we get to the core of who we are and how we're meant to serve. The more you peel that onion back and stand in your gifts, and like when I say own, I mean own. And so you get to that point, let's say you are a coach and you have an hourly rate, and you start to view your hourly rate like diamonds or, like your hour, 1 hour with you is like one precious diamond, and you value it that much. And you'd never give your diamond away for free, and you'd never give a discount on your diamond. I mean, diamonds are what they cost, right? we're pretty clear on the worth of a diamond, and you are that. You are a diamond. And so when you get into that worth and you own it so much, you become a magnet. It's that confidence you exude. It's that this is it. This is what I do, and I will change your life. And your people, your specific soul audience is going to feel that. You put out an energy frequency, and you're talking about their pain points, knowing them from a deep soul level, and their desires from a deep soul level, and their needs. And they're just going to be, and in this information age where we get bombarded, the more you can specifically put out their energetic signal, the more easeful it will be for them to pick up on it. And it will just be easeful self-selection. I need that. I need what you're offering on a soul level. And they won't hem and haw, and they won't second guess. Their brain might come in and say, I'm not worthy of this. I can't afford it. My partner won't support. So of course, you might have to talk them through their objections, right? But on a soul level, they're going to be sold before they ever even get on the phone with you. And most soul clients don't even need to read a sales page. They just hear you, they interact with you live, and their inner knowing kicks in, and it's like, yep, I need her. I need this. I need that. So there's this ease to it. Not all the time, because it's not meant to be easy, and you will have, there's always going to be bumps along the way. But overall, when you're really in this magnetism, this ease is there that never, ever ceases to put me in an awe state. When I'm in that alignment and the soul client just falls in my lap, I am always in a constant state of awe about how easeful it can really be.
You were talking, and while you were talking, I kind of went into this place where I was just picking up on your energy. And I went to this place of, I really like her energy right now. And I didn't pay much attention. This must be the example of how Spirit's showing me what you're talking about. I'm like, I just really love this energy. And then I came back and I was like, she's saying words. And it was like, I just love this energy. And that's really how it is of what you were just saying. It's so funny that that's how I experienced it in the moment.
That's 100% it. You just nailed it. That's why, your soul clients, when you're really in the energy, and this is unfortunately something we can't fake it to make it. This has got to be true. It's got to be real. And it doesn't come overnight. I wasn't owning my worth to the level I do today 2 years ago, right? I was in more of a second guessing. Can I really serve my clients? Could I have gifts this big? All the things. And that's where the healing comes in, which I believe we're going to be talking about. But so if you view it as a journey and every day you're owning your worth just a little bit more and you're standing in your authenticity and your gifts and you're not holding back, we really do transcend words. Words aren't necessary.
Yes, I really like that you're saying that. And also with that example, I think it's going to put a lot of pieces together for people listening, because sometimes you're just like, I'm in it. I don't really care what you're saying. I'm a yes. Versus a lot of times when entrepreneurs are selling something or they're inviting people into their programs, they list all the details and that's what they're worried about, versus it's that vibration. And that is why it's so important to make sure that our energy is in alignment. So many times we're like, I've got to do the things, I've got to do all the marketing, or, I have to put this piece of the puzzle together, versus sometimes we can completely forget about what's really going on in that magnetism. And I do want to talk about healing, because I know healing's a huge process of attraction, but we're going to talk about that right after this quick break. So stay with us and we'll be right back. As a professional psychic medium, I've done tens of thousands of readings. But I felt a call to move more fully into teaching intuition. But I still get so many requests about doing readings. So while I don't do readings anymore, I have brought in some very trusted colleagues who are now available for live 1-hour readings on Zoom. If you would like to book your psychic medium reading, go to messengerofspirit.com/appointments. to see our available readers and schedule your Zoom reading today. All right. Thanks for hanging in there. We're back with Allyson Scammell, and we are talking about really aligning to and attracting your soul clients. We've been talking about some amazing things and about how much our energy is a huge factor in your attracting your perfect soul aligned clients. And Allyson, can you tell us a little bit more about how our healing helps us magnetize this?
Yeah, such a good question. So our healing, it's not fun to heal. Healing implies pain, it implies a wound, it implies suffering to a degree. So I know a lot of my clients will come to me and say, Allyson, I've been working on this wound so long. Why can't it just go away? And I just empathize that with them so much. I mean, some of our wounds are really designed to be with us for our whole lifetime into elderhood. And we even have some wounds that I'm just checking in with the spirit guides. Do I want to say this? Because I want this to be upbeat and positive, but I don't want to give anybody news that they wouldn't be excited about, but they're saying, yes, I should share this. We even have a few wounds that have such a long tail. For some people, not all people, will have wounds with such a long tail. You've had them for so many lifetimes. You picked them up through ancestry, etc., collective wounds that you can't even heal 100% of the wound in this whole lifetime. But, you can heal as much as you can heal. So the point is, it's a journey. Treating healing as it is the journey. And that's what my guides say. Healing is the journey. It is the journey. It's not the destination. I am healed. It's all gone. That thing I suffered from is just gone. It's the journey. And every time we have the courage to heal, because it takes courage to heal, it's gonna get more easeful. And you're gonna be more aligned, and you're gonna hold the space and have the capacity to hold more joy. So in this context of soul client attraction, I really invite you to really see healing as the journey, and it's part of the process. And it is a powerful part of the process. And to put the excitement and the high vibey spin on it, the truth of the matter is you get rewarded massively for having the courage to heal. So how does this work? You can plug this into any challenge in your life where you need healing. But in this example of soul client attraction, let's say a common wound of the entrepreneur is, I'm not good enough. How could my gifts be that big? How could my soul mission be so grand? How could I think I could impact the planet on a massive level? Who am I to think, right? Those lovely thoughts. So what we want to do always, always, always with healing is just noticing it's present without judgment, with self-compassion. And I know you talk a lot about healing on this, so I won't go into too much detail on how we heal, but more into how the healing attracts soul clients. So you notice what's present. I'm not good enough in this example. That makes me feel, shame. It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel angry. It makes me feel resentment, all the things. So I always teach people in the healing, feel the feels, notice what's present, identify it. If it feels safe, feel those feels. And then in the feeling is the releasing. It's the feel and release. And so once you have the courage to feel those feels, which can feel scary, but if you say, you know what, I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to treat it as a lab, if it's not if it's real trauma, if it's current lifetime real trauma, you will want someone to hold the space for you if it feels too intense. But if it doesn't feel too intense and you can do it on your own, just sit in the emotions for 60, 90 seconds. And this is when the magic comes in. Had the courage to step up, look inside. I have this thing. I'm ready to release it. So I'm going to feel these uncomfortable emotions. And in that release, that is one of the most powerful moments where we are energetically, because you are releasing a block, a wound that is inside of you that is weighing you down. Like a barnacle, our energy blocks are like a barnacle. You're letting it go, and your energetic resonance is rising. And it rises highest right after a release. It goes, you go down to spring up, and you spring up even higher than your normal dominant energetic resonance. So you are in a higher frequency. And in that higher frequency, in a post, release, that is a beautiful time to what? Connect into your soul client avatar, connect to her energy, connect to her, talk to her. What are your pains? What are your desires? What are your needs? And connect into your divine guidance team, to your spirit guides, to your higher self. What am I being called to create? Who am I being called to be? What aspect of my genius wants to come through? And it's just an absolutely amazingly powerful time to connect into the spiritual realm, to get that download, get that insight for your next offering, your next blog post, your next podcast, or the podcast that you'll launch. So it's that reward you get for doing the work. And if that's not enough, you've healed. So now you're in a greater alignment. So your soul client is able to find you even more easily the more aligned you are, because you were able to put out a more and more powerful signal. So when you approach healing it is the journey, and it never ends. It never ends. Most of us, I talk to my guides about it. Like, so am I like on track to get enlightenment in this lifetime? So I'm like cleared of all wounds. And they don't really answer me, but they're kind of like, why don't you just treat it more like a journey? So I'm like, all right, it's the journey. So if you just treat it like the journey, wounds are part of it. And you guys have probably heard the expression, new level, new devil. So when you do get to those new levels, there's just going to be new types of wounds, and it's just the journey, and it's okay. And when you do the healing and you get that amazing release, you get the rewards of the higher connections, the higher alignment. And in this example, your soul clients finding you in more and more easeful and magical ways. And this is when we really start to transcend 3D marketing. And they find you in ways like, how did this even happen? And nobody's finding you from your website anymore or your blog posts. And they're finding you from all these other amazing, magical ways. And I think for most soul guided entrepreneurs, this is why we're here, right? We're not here to crank out 3D marketing and do all the bro marketing techniques. We're here to be in the awe and the magic and the flow and the unfolding. And our healing is what's going to enable us to get there.
Yes, absolutely. I know that I attract a lot of ambitious people. I mean, here we are on the Spiritual and Ambitious podcast. And what I've noticed with ambitious people, they're like, how do I get this healing done now? Like, I'm ready, chop, chop, let's do it. So looking at it as the journey, and that the healing process, no matter if it's not completed in this lifetime, isn't necessarily preventing you from living your highest and your best and living in abundance and in your purpose and attracting. And what I really love about the release process is because sometimes in that release process, we can feel joy and elation, but sometimes in that release process, we can feel alone and naked. Like, oh my goodness, now this is gone. I've been carrying it around for years and lifetimes, and I feel weird. And I like that you're bringing back this memory of this is where you're sending out the signal. This is where you can ask those questions. This is where you're really in a higher state to get more clarity. So everyone listening out there, if you are in a release process, please remember this is a beautiful moment in itself. Even though sometimes we don't want to cry or we don't want to feel those things, this is a great step in a vibration. I've seen all these memes out there on social media where it's like, this is how I felt when I was becoming more spiritually aligned and a higher vibration. This is how I thought I'd feel. And it was like rainbows and unicorns and skipping in a field. And it's like, and this is the reality. And, it's like crying on the floor. And it's just part of our humanness and part of those things that we have to release and let go. So I love that you talked about the more we can heal and release, the more we're accelerating that magnetism and attraction to our soul aligned clients, which is really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
You're so welcome.
I've got a question for you. So I do want to talk about this because we chatted about being spiritual and ambitious. Can you tell everyone listening how being spiritual and ambitious shows up in your life?
I was just thinking, Whitney, how much I love that you named this podcast this, because I think we're programmed to think if you're it's not spiritual to be ambitious. I'm sure you talk about this a lot. And I am spiritual and I'm very ambitious. I'm probably one of your soul client avatars, Whitney, because if you've come onto this earth at this point, you do not have a small mission, my friend. Mother Earth is going through some stuff. Yeah. And we're going to a whole new age, a whole new earth, a whole new time, a whole new energy frequency. And we need light workers like you, like your listeners. And these are not small missions. And that ambition is really this ambition comes from, if you're a light worker, you're driven by service primarily. And I'm driven by money and creativity. I'm driven by a lot of things. And I'm driven by service and having that big global impact, impacting the planet on a massive level. That gets me fired up in the morning. And if you're someone who likes big numbers and you like the idea of having 100,000 followers on social media, I love it. Yes, go for it. And if you're someone I'm more of a bespoke person, I see myself attracting 1 to 2,000. I love that too, because this is when we get into that ripple effect. That ripple effect of when I serve you, your person serves her person serves their person. And this is the ripple effect. So it doesn't really matter. Numbers again start to not mean anything. So for me, being ambitious is ultimately about I'm ambitious because Earth is meant to be our playground. And I want to earn money so I can travel and have a nice house and do cool things. I'm ambitious because I'm so driven by service. And I want to give a big middle finger to the patriarchy and some of the messed up systems that are on planet right now. And let's get rid of them and build systems where everybody can thrive. And that gets me so fired up. And it makes me feel so ambitious in such a cool way, such a motivated, high vibey way. So if your listeners are resonating with this is you. You just have a big soul mission and you're the one. And if you ever think, well, who am I the one to think I could have such a big mission? Well, I am telling you, one of my gifts is I'm a mirror of truth. I don't blow smoke. I'm a mirror of truth. And my message is you are the one.
That's such a good message. I forgot to tell you this, but while we were talking a while back, the light flickered when you were talking and you were getting really passionate and it just kind of went out and then came back. And I was like, oh yeah, that's that energy again. That's so nice when we're talking about signs and intuition and things like that, where you just can really resonate with that energy and you can feel, and this came in that physical way. So it's really beautiful. So Allyson, can you tell listeners how they can find you?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I would love to. So you can find me on my website, AllysonScammell.com. And I have a very cool gift happening at the moment. It's an energy upgrade meditation, and it really will take you through everything we just spoke about, where you release a block weighing you down. And then what happens, it helps guide your energy to those higher frequencies where you can tune into your soul client avatar and your guides and your higher self and source and get the messages that you need to hear in any given moment. And then I have my labor of love, my podcast, Soul Guide Radio. And I was lucky enough to have Whitney on my podcast. I will link this episode on my podcast when your episode is released. So I would love for you to check out my podcast. And lastly, I'll just mention my closed Facebook group, Soul Guide Circle. And we're a group of leaders and light workers who are in service to each other and the planet.
Thank you. And I will definitely put all these links in the show notes. So for everyone listening, no worries. You can just check the show notes and they'll be right there. But I did want to ask you, Allyson, is there anything else that wants to come through? Any last piece of advice that you'd like to share with listeners?
Yes. I like these questions because I like to read the energy of the listeners. So let me see what your listeners really need in this moment. And that is what's coming through is if you are in an energy of second guessing your worth, second guessing your ability to transform the life of your soul client, I am here to tell you that your gifts are like diamonds, except for they're more valuable. They're rare, they're precious, and they are valuable. And my job is just to be the mirror of truth. So if you do have anything inside of you that's telling you any other story, it's just the journey. It's just simply a wound. So I invite you to look within, identify the wound, feel and release, and go back to the truth that your gifts are massive and you are here to make a massive impact on the planet.
I received that. Thank you. And I'm so happy that listeners will be able to look at their stuff, kind of weighing them down in this free meditation too. So I can't wait to share that with everyone listening. Thank you, Allyson, so much for being on this podcast. And I will definitely link the episode I did with you on your podcast in this too. So thank you for this energy exchange today. We really appreciate it.
Such an honor. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Spiritual and Ambitious podcast. I will see you next week in a brand new episode. Until then, here's to staying spiritual and ambitious. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. And if you loved it, would you please share it with a friend? I would also love your review and a reminder to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find me at messengerofspirit.com. And you can take the 4 Intuitive Languages quiz and find show notes there too. If you want to connect on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, you can find me at Messenger of Spirit. If you want to continue the conversation, join my free Facebook group at messengerofspirit.com/group. I'll meet you right here next week. Here's to staying spiritual and ambitious.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.